I'm Cindy Abbott Letro for Behind the Camera. Are you one of those people that sits at the end of a film and watches all of the different people that made that film, the names, the classifications, things like a grip and sound and a videographer? Well, this man is one of the people that gets them all together when a film is being made. This is John Scardino, and John is the rep. I'm going to get this. I'm reading it right off your card here, John. Motion Picture Studio Mechanics.
Yes.
That's sort of a broad term, but just some of the names of the different people that you represent.
There's different departments that are working behind the scenes. There's prop department. Under the prop department, there are set dressers, on-set dressers. The grip department is rigging grippers, construction grips. The electric, or the gaffer, we call the head of the electric department, has he has grips also. He has riggers. We also have wardrobe. Most of our wardrobe comes here from Buffalo, out of the local that's in Buffalo area.
You know, the reason I asked you that is filming in Buffalo has just grown astronomically, and you've been around. You and I used to serve on a commission way back.
Yes.
Well, when Jimmy Griffin was here. From your perspective, when did this all take place?
Well, the creating of the Local 52 started to get together about 1992, where 52 extended its jurisdiction. And it now covers all of New York State, where 52 only covered New York City. They cover Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Vermont, and New Jersey.
So that in order to be a member of 52, 52 is a union, and are most of the motion pictures that are being made here, are they major union operations?
In this area, they're not all union.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them are freelance, independent, low budget, under $1 million. It's just lately, over the last 4 or 5 years, that more union productions have been coming here into the Buffalo area. The Turtle movie that shot here about 4 years ago, they did a second unit. They were shooting the Turtles in New York City. They sent a separate unit here, and they hired 40 of our people to work on, they shut down the 33 Expressway. We worked there for a week and a half. Henry's Crime came in after that, did a second unit here. So we did all that.
John, one of the things I remember way back when we were involved in this, that some of the film people that came in said, well, they weren't going to shoot in Buffalo because we didn't have enough trained people. That's not the case anymore, is it?
No, in the last 2 years, we've increased our numbers of qualified people. We've taken in, when Marshall came here last year, we took in 20 new members. Some of them were local stagehands, and the rest of them were independent, non-union workers that have been working here for the last 10 years. So that's the experience that came in. We also took some in this last year from the 3 productions. We took in another 20. So we're almost like 68 local area from Syracuse to Jamestown in membership, when we originally only had like 21 people.
Well, the reason I'm asking is there's been this, not just in Buffalo, but in other areas that give film incentives. The state of New York gives film incentives to companies to come and shoot throughout the state, and then Buffalo gives another 10%. There are those that say, well, it's not a good place for the government to be spending money, that it's not generating business.
Right. There is an issue right out here now from one of our senators out in Lockport who thinks that the incentive does not bring any work or any employment here. I've had discussions with him and his staff last week. Their belief is that because of most of the incentive, most of the productions go to New York City. But like I told him, if you take away the incentive for this area, the extra 10%, nobody will come here. Whether we're experienced or not, they're not going to come here if they can't get the extra incentive.
For those people that don't think that the movie business is growing, the figures that I saw 6 years ago, not even $1 million was spent throughout here. Now I understand that it's well upward of 40 million.
Yes, well, it's actually, this past year brought in over $42 million in productions with these 4 productions they shot this year.
In just 1 year.
In 1 year. And the non-union aspect of it, because there's independents that also came in here this year. The amount of work that was generated for the last 3 productions, it was Wolf Boy, Island Experience, which is Purge, and Clover. brought in millions of dollars in investment with material, hotel rooms, spending of the crew. The crew, even the local crew, we had like 65 people working, and we were covering 2 movies at the same time. Plus, we had to reach out to places like Tennessee, Chicago for extra people because we didn't have enough people to fulfill it. So it was sort of a nightmare, but it was a great nightmare to have here. I enjoyed it. It was a great experience that we had them in. Now there's 2 more possibly coming. One's coming here in April, and another one is supposed to be coming here in the fall. And there's some talk of a large one coming. So if they come and the incentive is still here, that helps generate our work here.
And have you seen that are people coming here to get these jobs, or are they relocating to this area? Because that's a whole other question about, if you build it, they will come. And it's, what could be more exciting than being involved in film?
I think one of the interesting parts when we were in between Wolf Boy and Purge together, the last 2 weeks of Wolf Boy and the first 2 weeks of Purge started, we needed more people. There's a local out of Pittsburgh that's independent film local IA who reached out to us, gave us names of people who wanted to come to Buffalo to help work, and they actually helped supplement. There were also some independents that live in Buffalo that went to New Orleans when the incentive was there. As soon as they took the incentive out of New Orleans, there was no more movies there. They went to Atlanta. So there are people that will do that. They'll travel with it. But if we lose the incentive in Western New York area or the Region 3, I don't believe all those productions will come here.
Well, it's very interesting because I remember when we had different groups come in to scout. In fact, there was one that was supposed to take place at, I believe, Rich Stadium.
Yes.
And, they couldn't, if there weren't incentives, they weren't going to come here.
I know that was the one that went to Montreal. It was about a Buffalo police officer. And we got I remember Tim getting their uniforms, getting it all ready. They're going to come here to Buffalo. Montreal offered them free rooms, free this, free that. Where did they go? Montreal. They came here one night in a helicopter, flew over Buffalo, and that was the picture. And all the work was done in Montreal. So the politicians, some understand it, some don't. And I think the senator in Lockport would really think his position because he's hurting. People that live in Lockport and Niagara County worked on this construction crew. They worked almost 7 weeks. They were making $40 an hour. I mean, where are they going to make that money? And so New York gets more because it's New York City, not because of the incentive. They're going to go to New York City. But they come out here. Syracuse right now is in the midst of doing the same thing we're doing here, trying to get people to come to Central New York so they can capitalize on that incentive.
Well, it is big business. Go into any of the restaurants and try to get a reservation.
Yes.
And in fact, I know that hotel rooms, all of those things, a lot of ancillary, spending is done when a film company comes to town. The one thing I wanted to ask you about is, what would you advise, young people that say, gee, I want to be a part of that. It sounds exciting. There are 4 films here I could be working. What should they do?
They have been reaching out to us, and what we do is I'll bring them in on some productions, on the low budget productions, and we also put training classes together, and we bring them in to see if they're able. The problem keeping them here is they have enough work. If there's not enough production work here, then there's nothing for them to do here. There's just no production. You cannot be a production city. When I remember first starting this, the production cities were Los Angeles and New York City. In between were not production cities. I never thought we would get as many movies we are, that we are now in competition to be not a complete production city as New York and LA, but we're close enough that we can fill almost 80%. The Clover, we did 90% of that production was done by local people, 52 people, local 10 people, 121 people, and non-union people I put on. Whoever had the qualifications, they got into work. And when they got into work, the non-union, I offered them applications. It's only fair that they come in. So that's how that group would come in. And they would survive on freelance, low budget stuff when there is nothing, but that's basically how we get our people back in.
Well, and I think we're ready for the next stage. Really, it is. I like how I said that, the next stage.
I think it was.
No, but it is true that you just keep getting more and more sophisticated, and if you have the demand, it makes you want to up your game.
And you get more experience.
Right.
And one of the things on the local scene when we talked about revenue, and I don't know the number, all the food is done when people are on the movie. Nobody leaves to go to lunch. They feed them there. They craft service them all day where they have food all day, and they'll have a lunch, or if they're shooting at night, they'll have a dinner and a breakfast. So and those are local people that are making the food, and they're not people from out of town. They're all local restaurants. I remember on Marshall, we were up in one of the parks out south, north of the city, but they had a food truck there. They had food trucks on different nights on the production. So that's, again, helping the local. It's just a small part, but that's what helps bring the people here. That's how they make money.
Well, John, you've done a great job in helping grow the film industry here throughout the region. And I hope that it continues to grow. Yes. It's very exciting. I'm Cindy Abbott Letro for Behind the Camera.
My wrestling background, I thought, you know what, that's been a big part of me in my life and growing up, and really helped shape me into the person I am today,
The words of new Buffalo Bills head coach Sean McDermott. While the Bills were making Super Bowl appearances in the early 90s, McDermott was becoming a two-time national prep school wrestling champion for LaSalle College High School near Philadelphia. Since then, McDermott has had an impressive rise through the NFL coaching ranks, but he has never forgotten the impact that wrestling has had on his career and his life.
Probably about 4 or 5 years ago, springtime, every year the PR department gives us our bio, and we have to check it for accuracy and all that type of good stuff. And there was no mention of the wrestling, my wrestling background. I thought, you know what, that's been a big part of me in my life and growing up, and really helped shape me into the person I am today, both on and off the field. And so I figured I should mention it in there, and really, you know, to your question, there's a lot of life lessons you learn and through wrestling, whether it's growing up around the sport or you know, when you get older, junior high and high school wrestling. So life lessons like adversity and determination, commitment, work ethic, I think those are huge to life.
I'm not going to ask you to brag, but tell me a little bit about your high school career.
Yeah, I started off at North Penn High School, a public school outside of Philadelphia, and had what most would consider a good career there, and then transferred to LaSalle High School outside of, again, Philadelphia, and ended up being, I think, 62 or 64 and 0, and won the national prep championship 2 years in a row. So I'd also add, if I could brag for a second, only taken down once in 2 years. So that was my forte. I wasn't a pinner. I would just wear people out.
What was your go-to takedown?
Low single takedown. I was a quicker guy and faster guy, so I use that cardio. I like to be in good shape and kind of use my cardiovascular endurance and just, again, wear people out the low single.
Your weight class?
Believe it or not, 171. First 2 years, freshman and sophomore year, 140, 145, and then all the way up to 171, hit a growth spurt. And I was a football player as well, so it was tough to try and bring it back down to probably where it should have been.
I was going to ask you, tough cut in weight your senior year?
A little bit, not too much. I would wrestle up a little bit at 189 and then down to 171, but probably should have dropped if I was really serious about a career in college with wrestling. I probably should have dropped down.
What college opportunities did you have in wrestling?
Well, I spoke to a number of schools: Virginia, George Mason, a little bit with Penn State. You know, that's before Penn State really came back on the map with Coach Sanderson and whatnot. But yeah, some of those schools, and just decided to go with football.
Now, I wrote an article actually because your high school coach was quoted as saying that when he asked you in high school about doing both sports and how tough that was, you told him football's easy, wrestling's hard.
That's right.
And I think anybody who's wrestled and played football will agree with that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, wrestling, when you go from football to wrestling season, it was always a big shock to the system because you thought you were in shape. I played both ways, quarterback, I played defensive back, did some kicking, punting, mostly punting, and I thought I was in great shape. But then when you get into the wrestling room and the wrestlers have already been they've already started their season, at least practice-wise. I was always out of shape, and so that was always a shock to the system.
Fred Smerlis, who was a great nose tackle here for the Bills, he was a state champ, state high school wrestling champ.
Right.
He always told me he wished the seasons had been reversed, because wrestling would have really gotten him in shape for football.
True, that's true. And more than anything, I think there's a whole lot of mental toughness, mental endurance as well that goes into wrestling, and that carries over to not only football but life as well.
I know you were impressed with the performance by Penn State at the NCAAs. I mean, who wasn't? 5 champs. Mike Zimmer from the Minnesota Vikings is a big wrestling guy. He looks for wrestlers in the draft amongst the linemen. And he once had Dan Gable come and talk to his team before a playoff game to talk about what it means to be a champion. You have access through ownership to Penn State. Have you ever thought about bringing in somebody like Cal Sanderson to talk to the team?
I have, and it's funny you mentioned that. I do have access to Cal's information, contact info, and it's actually sitting on my desk that I plan to reach out to Cal and if for nothing else, just to share leadership stories and maybe get some tips or advice on whatever sport you do. If you're good at it, you're doing something right. Just habits, and hopefully see if Cal would agree to come and speak to us at some point.
What would you say to a high school athlete who's considering wrestling as a sport?
I would absolutely encourage any young man or woman to wrestle. Again, the life skills that you pick up through a sport, it's a team sport, but there's a lot of one-on-one time in wrestling, and I always looked at it as, what am I doing that my opponent's not doing? As I go home at night and get done my academics, get through the academic side of being a student, I would go out and run, get an extra run or lift in just to out prepare my opponent, and so I think that's big, and it's true in life as well, that you do things to set yourself apart, habits. And we just talked as a team on the field that you have to focus on the process. This part of the year is all part of the process, and you never know what's going to set us apart from the rest of the teams in the NFL.
You said your son has dabbled in wrestling. Do you think he'll pursue it?
We'll see. We're going with the marathon, not a sprint approach. I burnt out in wrestling middle part of my career, and then I was able to hit the reset button and got back on it. And I wanted to ease him into it, and he enjoys it as a young man. We'll see if he continues with it. Being back up in the Northeast, I'm happy that this is a wrestling hotbed, if you will, that he'll have a chance, if he wants to pursue a sport like wrestling.
Russell Salvatore is an iconic Buffalo restaurateur, building not one, but 2 highly successful dining establishments. The secret to Russell's longtime success is simple.
I love it more than anything in the world. Like I mentioned to people that came in Valentine's Day just recently, it's my 67th Valentine's Day that I've worked in a row. To see these kids get engaged and everything, I get a thrill out of it. I just enjoy trying to make people feel good and to be happy. And mostly all the places that I've had as I've gone along were like special occasion places. You're celebrating an anniversary or a birthday or something like that. It's a nice feeling to make them feel good. And if anybody knows me, I work 7 days a week, and I'll work 15, 20 hours a day, and it doesn't bother me a bit.
Russ Salvatore's success has also allowed him to become one of the most philanthropic business owners in Buffalo's history. Russell's enormous generosity comes from his early years working for his father.
My dad taught me when I was young, and he'd say, son, remember, in this business, you have to give to receive. I could remember my dad, when someone came in, he had a corner saloon, he always bought them the first drink, became friends with them. So maybe a little bit of that blood has flown to me. But I get a great feeling when I give back. And I have the feeling as I'm getting older, I'm getting more scared. I'm 84, and when I read that obituary column, I see all the young people passing away. I hope I've given every penny that I've got back to the community. before I get upstairs in that place in good old heaven. Nobody's ever told me they got a good cocktail lounge up there or anything like that, you know. But if I do, maybe I'll find some guy that brought his money with him to buy me a drink, you know. It's a nice feeling. It started when about 5-6 years ago when I broke my ankle at ECMC, and they were so good to me, and they were like television sets that were like 100 years old, and I told Jody O'Mayo, Jody, I'm going to buy new televisions for everybody in the hospital. And he thought I was crazy, and I says, I could not see people that are sick or they have to pay to put the TV on. And I says, I want to buy the contract out where nobody has to pay to put televisions on. And it mushroomed from that. And then I did it when a girl came in for Roswell. Imagine you got the worst disease, and she says, my mom has to pay $8.50 to turn the TV on. I've gone to every hospital that has to pay to put TV on and have replaced their TVs, or they don't have to pay to put them on. Brothers of Mercy, Roswell, the new children's hospital that's going to be going up out on Ellicott Street. I've always sat down with Joey LeMayo, and I says, I want to be responsible for those TVs, and nobody has to pay to put TVs on. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. It's not a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money, but I make a lot of money, and every penny that I make will go back to the community.
Recently, Russ Salvatore made the largest donation of his career, pledging $1 million to ECMC.
Well, you know, the recent donation is the biggest donation that I've ever made. I got scared. I know Sue Gonzalez, that's in charge of the hospital over there a little bit, and she started talking to me about doing some renovations for the, they're going to do an emergency room and an entrance and a foyer. So my good friend Don Prino, which is the most talented guy in the world, I talked to him, he went over there, we looked at it, and we came up and we drew a few renderings for Susan of what the hospital should look like. She got very excited. They put that in their plans, and she said to me, she says, could you see your way clear to donate $1 million? You know, and I looked at my future there, and I said, I still have money left, but then we have money working for us. It's just that people might mislead. I just don't bring my checkbook up and sign a check for $1 million. It's a commitment that I would give for Susan over a period of 8 years. I'll give her a couple $100,000, but then the rest of the money is working. And over a period of 8 years, we will have that commitment paid off. Like I said, you do little things like that. We have been busy, knock on wood, and I really think the reason we're as busy is because I'm giving back. People like to see, it's their money. It's not my money, it's the customer's money. They come in here, they got a piece of that action at ECMC.
One group Russ Salvatore has greatly helped are the local service veterans, and that commitment has been demonstrated by the building of the beautiful Patriots Park located in front of Russell's on Transit Road.
The veterans I've come close with, I mean, the park in the front was supposed to be land that I bought to put a plaza up. The day they were supposed to build the plaza, I decided, Charlie told me, he says, you know, you don't need no plaza. A good friend of mine, Charlie. So I says, you know, I canceled the plaza. He said, I'm going to put a park in there. And Charlie called it, says, make it Patriots and Heroes Park. So we're doing it for all the Patriots and for other things like memorials like 9/11. Don Perino, my good friend, has designed everything in that park. He's made everything with his hands, most talented guy around, the Battle of the Bulge. By doing this now, all of a sudden, it become a place where veterans are coming in, and we got the biggest flag in Buffalo, New York State, and it become, I was in the service, but I was fortunate not to have to go with some of these veterans. It's just, for them, I don't have no idea why it became big with the Patriots and Heroes, you know.
Russ Salvatore's ability to help countless local charities and organizations stems from his phenomenal success running a 5-star restaurant. If it's a special occasion, Salvatore wants you to celebrate it at Russell's.
It's just my nature, you know. I mean, I work the desk, and I'm lucky that the Lord made me so sociable. I mean, I could have you come in for your anniversary, and I'd say, geez, you look beautiful tonight. What are you celebrating? My anniversary. Oh, my gosh, congratulations. No, you're having dinner tonight, but are you staying with us tonight? And she'll say, no, we don't have 3 children. Dear, do me a favor. While you're having dinner, it happened to me about 3-4 weeks ago, while you're having dinner, I got a beautiful suite for you to stay overnight. Stay with me on my compliments and get somebody to watch the kids. And they had a great night, and I felt so good. You're talking the middle of the week, the rooms are empty. We got the product to work with to help people make a night of it. And I mean, if you come in, I tell my front desk, if the rooms are over, we got 20 suites. Don't let me see the suites not booked. Give it to them. It's the same water, the same pillow, same sheet. Let the person feel like $1 million. My dad, I always remember saying to me, son, you don't have to have an education to be nice. And I mean, you're looking at the stupidest saloon keeper in the city of Buffalo right now. You know? So, I mean, I'm nice, but dumb. If I can do more for the community, I will be out there. And again, like I said, go to bat for them. I don't know what I got left, but I will include anybody that can need a favor, if you need anything, come to see me. I'll be welcome to sit down and talk to you.